Part 18. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 171. Thinking back to when Shen Erjun, Lei Mingniao, and Zhang Ding intercepted him in Tianyu Forest, Wu Yu was just an inconspicuous junior in their eyes. Today, Zhang Ding and Lei Mingniao were both beheaded by Wu Yu. Even these two gods ran away when they encountered Wu Yu. This was considered a joke for everyone to see. Outside the 10,000 sword formation, the disciples and demons of the Xuanhuan Dao sect watched Lei Mingniao die in battle, and the second Lord Shen fled in embarrassment. For a moment, their confidence was greatly damaged, and their faces were already a little gray. Wu Yu's rise and bravery had reached the point where they would tremble inside even if they didn't fight. What's even more frightening is that Wu Yu turned into a golden light and chased away, hanging tightly behind the second Lord Shen, almost as if he was catching prey. You know, even in the immortal ape transformation, the second god is still as tall as a giant beast, much taller than Wu Yu. Shen Erjun didn't have any advantage in speed. In the flash of calcium carbide, Wu Yu had already caught up with him. For a moment, most people focused their attention on them. When Shen Erjun felt the fierce aura coming from behind him, he knew that Wu Yu was chasing him. Seeing that there was no way to escape, he felt a heat in his head and turned back suddenly, preparing to fight. To be honest, Lei Mingniao's death really scared him, but now that he calmed down, he felt that if he resisted, other helpers would soon arrive around him, and they might be able to capture Wu Yu. Today, their location is not far from other people, and there are even a few monsters nearby. Wu Yu, if you dare to kill Lei Mingniao, the 9 Immortals will not let you go. Today is the day when your Tongtian sword sect will perish. You just have to die. In the roar, the mountain forest rolled, and there was a thick black mist on his body. It rolled over his head and swept around him. There seemed to be countless ghosts shining dimly. In his eyes, there were rolling waves of blood, which was very terrifying. People. Poor Lord God, can you only use threats to deal with me now? Wu Yu stopped in front of him. He slowly separated the black and white Dao swords and held them in his left and right hands. 8 sources of mana flowed out of his body. Although it's not huge, but the magic power forged from the great heavenly magic still has a hidden edge. Wu Yu like this makes the two gods tremble in their hearts. The more scared you are, the more you resort to anger and roaring to cover it up. When I dig out your eyes, use your corpse to make a zombie, and enslave you for eternity, you will know what regret and misery are. While roaring in a deep and rough voice, he stepped on the ground. For a moment, the surrounding ground was completely cracked, and the rocks collapsed. From the huge crack, hundreds of black smoke sprayed out, and in the black smoke, there was a sudden scream, and countless people could clearly see green seedlings with fangs and rotten evil spirits emerging from the ground. In the blink of an eye, there were already thousands of heads. In the endless years, countless people have died, and even in any place underground, as long as they use the Taoist skills of ghost cultivators to induce, gather energy, and attract, the appearance of thousands of evil ghosts is nothing at all. The technique was originally passed down by the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea, and in this regard, the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea are the masters. These thousands of evil ghosts trapped both Wu Yu and Shen Erjun among them. Wu Yu had been overwhelmed by the vicious corpse energy. But that's not all. In the rising smoke, the crying and screaming faces of ghosts and innocent souls appeared in it, and there were about 1,000 flying above Wu Yu's head. Looking from the outside, Wu Yu has been surrounded by countless evil ghosts and innocent souls. Especially the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect couldn't help but worry for Wu Yu when they saw this scene. After all, those evil ghosts and innocent souls looked really scary. Many young disciples turned pale when they saw these ghosts. Eat him. At the command of the two gods, thousands of evil ghosts and innocent souls, some roaring and some screaming, swarmed towards Wu Yu. Especially the innocent souls, in their cries and howls, turned into a storm, blowing it came with no resistance and rushed into Wu Yu's body. Thousands of wronged souls have entered the body, and the same body is crowded with thousands of souls. How terrifying that is! The wronged soul successfully entered the body. Lord Shen-Er had woken up from the initial fright and found great self-confidence. There was a bit of a sneer on his face, as if he was sure of victory. "You guys just get out of the way, Wu Yu, I'll take care of it." Shen-Er waved to the helpers approaching around him, while commanding the endless evil ghosts to pounce forward. Wu Yu was indeed caught in a terrible struggle within his body. He could clearly see every face of the thousands of innocent souls, their bloody mouths and ferocious faces. Some had their eyes gouged out, and some had their eyes gouged out. Their tongues were cut, some had their noses and ears cut off, and most of them had no hands or feet. It was extremely miserable. Those innocent souls were screaming, crying, and struggling, affecting Wu Yu's mental will. This is the killing weapon of the second Lord Shen. Even the 10th level of Qi condensation realm will be greatly affected. However, Wu Yu's face was indifferent from beginning to end. Visualize the mind ape. Visualizing the mental ape, the mind becomes more peaceful. The unparalleled Monkey King in the heart is in the golden flame, with great power. When the wronged soul enters the body, the golden flame on it sweeps Wu Yu's body invisibly. When the flame burns through, all the innocent souls were annihilated in the screams. Thousands of wronged souls were turned into ashes in an instant. The golden light in Wu Yu's eyes became more intense, and everyone could clearly see that at the center of the evil ghost, his body seemed to be made of gold. Although it was the body of a golden ape, it revealed the human spirit and will. Whoosh! He turned into golden light again and rushed towards Shen-Er. Wherever he went, the evil ghosts were cut off by the double swords. All the evil ghosts flew out with broken arms and legs. Some evil ghosts even hit Wu Yu and were instantly torn into pieces. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. The evil ghosts can't stop Wu Yu at all. In an instant, all the wronged souls died, and the evil ghosts were like tofu, torn and broken in front of Wu Yu. So powerful, Shen-Er was just proud, but when he saw this scene, he panicked. The scene of Lei Mingniao being beheaded kept replaying in front of his eyes. "I don't want to die, I can't die," a huge wave rose in his heart, and a wave called fear began to spread from his heels. However, with his personality, the more fear he had, the more violent he became. That Wu Yu's light, his fierce eyes, and a sharp sword pierced Shen-Er eyes. Whether it is taboo or not, you have to use that method. When Shen-Er face changed horribly, he opened his arms, chanted the formula, kept beating his chest, made all kinds of weird movements, and even took out some blue powder and sprinkled it on his body. He didn't show a cruel smile until everything was done. "This is the first time I show my body of the sea ghost god, you are dead." As soon as the voice fell, his body exploded and grew larger. The change of his body was even greater than Wu Yu's fairy ape transformation. Shen-Er was originally tall, and now he changed from a human to a huge monster, as if a demon turned into a real body, even bigger than ordinary demons. When Wu Yu arrived in front of the second god was already 6 feet tall. His skin had completely turned black, his muscles were knotted, and black scales had grown on his skin, like fish scales. Especially the head, although it could still barely see the human shape, it had actually changed into the head of a fish, especially the bloody mouth with sharp and long teeth. This huge mouth could swallow a demon in one bite. This was a black monster from the endless ocean. Its ferocity and bloodiness simply meant death in the endless ocean. The body of the ghost of the vast sea, this ghost cultivation technique was obviously very profound. It was the ultimate skill of the second god. It was probably the same as the forbidden Taoist technique, but in order to deal with Wu Yu, the second god had already fought hard. When the body of the ghost appeared, it caused an uproar for a while. The countless evil ghosts around it were not as scary as this monster. If this monster was compared to a toad, the thousands of evil ghosts around it could only be regarded as tadpoles. Roar! In front of Wu Yu, the monster roared loudly, shaking the entire 10,000 swords formation. The movement here was even greater than the 10,000 swords formation of Juxian and Zhangzizan. Boom! In the panic of everyone, the giant claw of the second god slapped Wu Yu's head. Another thrilling moment. Fighting against this monster, it is shocking that Wu Yu is still not scared. Maybe more people are worried about him at this time, but his choice is to fight. When the giant claw slapped, he suddenly retreated and dodged. Even so, the ground was still shaking, and the evil ghost was buried first. Boom boom boom. Then, Wu Yu was completely forced back by the second god, and he kept retreating, as if he had no power to resist at all. This is undoubtedly more worrying. After several consecutive attacks, the second god became even more violent. For a moment, the demons outside and the disciples of Xuanhuan Dao sect all laughed at Wu Yu's embarrassment. They finally had some self-esteem. Ridiculous. Wu Yu glanced at them. Turning back, the second god continued to kill. His great strength and ghost cultivation skills were indeed at the peak, and he could completely crush Wu Yu. At this moment, Wu Yu stood on a giant tree. He held the two swords horizontally with both hands, but closed his eyes. The world has yin and yang, and yin and yang are equally divided. There is also yin and yang in the heart. When the world was born, yin and yang were one, and they surrounded each other, which was called Tai Chi. Now he stabbed the two swords in front of his eyes, and drew them at the same time in front of his eyes, and finally drew two yin and yang fish entwined with each other. The sword energy in the yin and yang fish was fierce. Set membership symbol BAL shocked and difficult X, B/U003E. At that moment, the second god roared, knocked down trees, blew up countless boulders, and rushed to Wu Yu's eyes. Second god, Wu Yu shouted. Second god roared, jumped high, and came to destroy, and at this moment, Wu Yu stabbed out with both swords. Newborn yin and yang chi sword, chi tai chi sword. Suddenly, the yin and yang fish exploded in an instant, turning into countless black and white sword chi, passing through the body of second god. For a moment, blood rushed to the sky, and the body fell to the ground. Wu Yu. Second god's head returned to its original state and fell in front of Wu Yu. He was still conscious, but the look he gave Wu Yu was full of pain and despair. With one move, Wu Yu made him fall from the sky to hell. The newborn yin and yang chi sword was worn by ancient Taoists. Wu Yu studied hard and made some progress today. All the studies were for today's great killing. The seven ghosts of the Red Sea, are out. Wu Yu took one last look at him, then kicked his head off. Wow! Outside, the people from the three forces were completely frightened and retreated in a daze, not daring to look Wu Yu in the face. At this moment, the 10,000 swords formation shook for the last time and suddenly dissipated. Wu Yu looked up and saw that the 9 immortals had already rushed into the 10,000 swords formation and appeared at the 10,000 swords stone gate. Heaven swallowing record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 172. There is no doubt that Juxian succeeded. The 10,000 swords formation that had lasted for so long was still broken at this moment. Of course, Juxian also paid a price, that is, Lei Mingniao died in battle when she attacked. The 7 demons of the Red Sea also paid a heavy price. 5 of the 7 died in battle. Tian Yujun went crazy all of a sudden. In fact, since the 5 saints were killed by Wu Yu, their battle for the throne has become a battle of revenge. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The remaining Tian Yujun and San Yuji can be said that no matter what they get this time, the 7 demons of the Red Sea are considered a miserable defeat. And this miserable defeat was given to them by Wu Yu. Of course, the cover of the 10,000 Swords formation also helped a lot. Once the 10,000 Swords formation was broken, Wu Yu could not think much. At that moment, the real immortal war started instantly. First, Tian Yujun and San Yuji witnessed Wu Yu killing Shen Erjun with their own eyes. They let out ghost howls for a while, and summoned evil ghosts and wronged souls like Shen Erjun. What people saw was that at the location of the Wanjian formation, the sword shadows had all disappeared, replaced by a large number of gullies and cracks. A large amount of black smoke gushed out from the ground, and in this smoke, at least 2,000 evil ghosts and 2,000 wronged souls appeared on the battlefield. Kill him without a single piece of armor left. Let these disciples of Tongtian sword sect be buried with my brothers and sisters of the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea. Let them go to hell forever. In the shrill screams of Yu Sanji, the army of evil ghosts and wronged souls, not afraid of death at all, rushed towards the direction of the Wanjian stone gate, and they stared at the thousands of Tongtian sword sect disciples. Outside, the disciples of Xuanhuan Dao sect, who were evenly matched with the disciples of Tongtian sword sect, and the demons who had been waiting for a long time and were already hungry, all burst into shocking roars, and shouts in the next moment, taking out magic weapons and killing weapons, galloping in the mountains and fields, and rushing towards the thousands of core members of Tongtian sword sect, led by Wanchen Yuxiu and the elders. It was about to happen. The Tongtian sword sect had been brewing for a long time, killing opponents and sacrificing blood on the battlefield, which increased their bloodiness and fighting spirit. Now facing the real three-party army, they drew out their magic weapon swords, their expressions were firm, and their wills were magnificent, especially Wu Yu's killing of the other 2 masters gave them great confidence. Boom! Wu Yu's position today was almost between the 2 sides, with those familiar people behind him. Even the young Qing Mang was determined to join the battle to protect the religion with a long sword. At that moment, time seemed to stand still. He took a deep breath, turned his back to his fellow apprentices, and turned his eyes to those evil spirits and demons. Wu Yu, follow Ju'er. A leisurely voice came from his ear, but it made him shudder. That's right, Juxian's goal was him. Looking back, after Juxian broke through the 10,000 swords formation, he came towards him first. Once the 10,000 swords formation was broken, Wu Yu had no fortress and could no longer hide. She locked onto him, and her cold eyes no longer had any pity. The current Juxian was still the body of the 9 heavens fox, with 9 pure white tails swaying behind her. Indistinctly, Wu Yu just glanced at her and almost forgot about the battlefield. Everything was illusory, and only she was real, right in front of him. You beast, don't run. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my head. I looked closely and saw blue water like sword lights surrounding Juxian. In the sky, the supreme protector of the religion, Lan Huayun, flew with a sword, holding a magic weapon and long sword, intercepting Juxian. Lan Huayun naturally understood that she was her opponent. The charm of the fox demon was stronger for men. The more suitable opponent for Feng Xia was Zhang Xie. Not far from the Wanjian stone gate, Feng Xia actually fought with Zhang Xie. For a while, the sword energy was soaring to the sky. As soon as the 4 Jindan masters started fighting, the people around them moved away, fearing that they would be injured by mistake. That movement was simply a landslide, turning the clouds and rain, and the sky and the earth. Countless sword energies were crisscrossed, and the magic power was rolling, which made people stunned. At least for Wu Yu, the pressure caused by Juxian to himself had disappeared. However, Wu Yu always felt that Juxian was still staring at him. A pair of invisible eyes always existed on his head, which made his back cold. Wu Yu, protect them and defeat the opponent. Suddenly, Feng Shui yelled at him. They. Wu Yu looked around and saw that the 5 elders and the elders who passed on the skills and enforced the law had all joined the battlefield. The 5 most critical elders were all in the 10th level of the condensation realm. Among the three forces, there were also Tian Yujun, Yu Sanji, a demon, and two elders from Xuanhuan Dao sect in the 10th level of the condensation realm. When Shen Erjun and Lei Mingniao were killed by Wu Yu, the number of the opponent's peak powerhouses was exactly the same as that of Tongtian Sword sect. There was even one more Wu Yu. Therefore, Wu Yu even estimated that Feng Shui and the others finally gave up the 10,000 swords formation because they saw that he had killed Shen Erjun, because this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to defeat the opponent. In the fights again and again, the top forces of the three forces became older and weaker, and at this time they were basically on par with Tongtian Sword section at this moment. The only advantage of the three forces was that the core forces were more than 3 times that of Tongtian Sword sect. Looking around, there are simply countless evil ghosts, demons, and disciples of Xuanhuan Dao sect. Tongtian Sword sect only has thousands of people. Without an absolute force to protect them, they will all die in battle soon. This is exactly the purpose of Feng Xia's anxious assignment for himself. Wu Yujin is free now, so he is naturally responsible for guarding them. Su Yanli, Qing Mang, Mo Shishu and the others. In fact, when the 10,000 sword formation was broken, Feng Shui and the others, who were well prepared, immediately went to find the opponents they had just discussed. For example, Tian Yujun, the strongest among the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea, was killed by Shentu. The elder immediately stopped him, and the two struggled for a while before fighting directly. At the top of the mountain, the 4 golden elixirs and 10 people at the 10th level of the Qi condensation realm formed 7 huge battlefields. No one dared to approach. The remaining backbone forces gathered together. On the other side, one rushed down and the other went up. Rush, they are about to collide with each other at Wu Yu's position. The difference between the Tongtian sword sect is that they will form a sword formation in groups of 3 to 5, which is a relatively rational way of fighting with mutual care. The evil ghosts and innocent souls are their first wave of enemies. Although the opponent is chaotic, the innocent souls affect the spirit, reason, evil ghosts, and their ferocity, and there are many in number, 4,000, which is 4 times their number. In comparison, the Tongtian sword sect is indeed quite dangerous. This is also the reason why Feng Xia has been supporting the 10,000 sword formation. But all the trouble is placed on Wu Yu, B/U003E. Generally speaking, wronged souls can affect the will, but they do not constitute real killing. Therefore, what is more dangerous to the Tongtian sword sect is the combination of these two ghosts. Wu Yu cannot stop the evil ghosts, but those 2,000 evil ghosts did not make him frown. Everyone, as long as I'm here, don't worry or be afraid. Form a sword formation and kill the enemy stably. These evil spirits look fierce, but they are all useless. The most important thing on the battlefield is the will of the soldiers. Wu Yu knows this truth very well, so he must first make those disciples not afraid and fearless, so that they can perform stably. Wu Yu, don't worry, we have all killed the disciples of the Xuanhuan Dao sect. Wanchen Yuxiu said. That beheading had already improved their bloodiness. Now facing the evil ghosts and the innocent demons, it seemed that most of the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect were in their best condition, cold-blooded but calm. Lian Qingmang was among them, smiling slightly at Wu Yu and nodding resolutely. When all of them saw Wu Yu blocking the front, they naturally felt an unprecedented sense of peace and full of fighting spirit. Everyone respected and admired him. These looks, coming from these closest people, filled Wu Yu's heart with endless power. Disciple Tongtian would rather die than surrender. War. They roared in unison, raised their swords, and thousands of magic weapons pointed to the sky. For a moment, this was the real sword energy soaring to the sky. Wu Yu was the first to charge, and the eager eyes and bursts of pride behind him were like a torrent that made his blood boil. Then, they were also sharp knives, rushing towards the evil spirit. Kill with me. Behind him, the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect formed a sharp formation, starting with Wu Yu, followed by Wan Tianyuxiu, Lan Liulai and many elders. Thousands of them rushed towards the evil ghosts with the same sword. Wu Yu merged his two swords with cold eyes. At the moment when he collided with the evil ghosts, he used Taoist magic to condense the Taoist golden sword technique and gave birth to a huge long sword. At least hundreds of evil ghosts appeared directly in front of his golden sword to kill. Within the range. Considering Wu Yujin's ability to kill the 10th level of the Qi condensation realm, it is too easy to kill the innocent souls of evil ghosts. When fighting against the second Lord Shen, these evil ghosts were not taken seriously by him. Kill. In an instant, collision. Wu Yu acted as a sharp knife and tore apart the group of evil ghosts in an instant. Wherever the golden sword of the great Dao was directed, with one slash, he could directly tear dozens of evil ghosts in front of him in half. For the time being, Wan Tianyuxiu and the others had no chance to take action, because wherever Wu Yu rushed over, there were almost all corpses. Even if there were any leftovers, they would be quickly killed by the hot-blooded Tongtian sword sect in an instant. Ahead, the golden sword flies. The broken corpses of evil spirits were flying all over the sky. Such tragic scenes are so heroic. Wu Yu used direct killings to give the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect a stronger fighting spirit and hope of victory. Maybe they didn't have it before. Everyone was nervous and hesitant, but at this moment, when they saw the evil ghost army being killed by Wu Yu killing in large numbers, no danger, B/U003E. A Tongtian sword sect could defeat the three forces, which was something that was unimaginable before. The eyes of those elders were red and moist. In their eyes, Wu Yu, who had reversed his rise, existed like a god. Senior brothers and sisters such as Su Yanli, Mo Shishu, and Wan Tianyuxiu looked at each other and smiled. They were the people closest to Wu Yu, especially Su Yanli, who had watched this junior brother reach this point with his own eyes. When Su Yanli killed the first evil ghost, she experienced the feeling of protection. At that moment, she understood Wu Yu better. It is precisely to protect them, to protect his new home, that he will go all out to do this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 173. Tear. Dozens of evil spirits rose into the sky again. Of course, it was the corpse that flew out. Under the protection of Wu Yu, when they first penetrated the army of evil ghosts and wronged souls, except for the hundreds of disciples who let the wronged souls enter their bodies and found it difficult to escape, there were basically no deaths and only a few disciples were injured. Among them, at least 200 innocent souls poured into Wu Yu's body, trying to control him, but were directly destroyed by the mental ape. In the process, Wu Yu also beheaded two 9th-level Qi condensation realms who tried to rush into the Tongtian sword sect disciples and start a killing spree, as well as a 900-year-old demon. The golden sword light swept across, and for a moment no one was able to defeat him. The disciples of the Tongtian sword sect, with him standing in front, suddenly became murderous. In one charge, more than 800 of the 2,000 evil ghosts were killed. Most of them were directly torn apart by Wu Yu. Wu Yu's hands were stained with too much blood. Of course, it was all the blood of evil spirits. After this charge, the fighting spirit of the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect really reached an unprecedented peak. They penetrated the evil ghost army. Even if the evil ghost army turned around and chased them, they could not catch up. And at this time, what appeared in front of Wu Yu's eyes was, half a demon, half a disciple of the Xuanhuan Dao sect. They were just arrogant and shouting to kill, but in just 10 breaths, Wu Yu tore the ghost cultivators apart and collided head-on with them. Evil ghosts don't know life or death. However,
These are all living ascetics and demons in front of you. Especially Zhongyu and Daozong. They had frightened Wu Yu, but now Wu Yu suddenly appeared. Without saying a word, he brandished a huge golden sword and slashed away. Those who were at the third level of the Qi condensation realm or above with ordinary speeds could not escape at all. In the past, with just one slash, dozens of people were killed on the spot, with blood splattering. Compared with evil ghosts, the death of a monk in battle is more shocking. Everyone in the Zhongyu Dao sect, if you don't retreat, you will die. Wu Yu killed them once, roared violently, and rolled the Dao golden sword to kill twice more. More disciples were directly annihilated, without even a chance to use their Taoist skills. Behind Wu Yu, hundreds of sword energies rushed toward him. The aura and murderous intent of the Tongtian sword sect, their cold eyes, the will to protect the sect and compatriots, plus Wu Yu's strength, pierced the hearts of every disciple of the Zhongyu Dao sect with a knife. I won't fight. If we don't fight, we lose. We lose. Many people were almost killed by Wu Yu. They saw with their own eyes the death of people less than half a foot away from them. Those people's spirits collapsed directly. After being hit by Wu Yu again, they were so frightened that they peed and fell to the ground. Then get up and run away like crazy. Don't leave, you will all die. Wan Tianyugzio led everyone from the Tongtian sword sect and shouted angrily. In fact, they didn't want to kill more people. In this kind of immortal war, the culprit was still the leader. Wu Yu directly broke into their hearts. Killing might be troublesome, so he chose to intimidate. When Wu Yu raised the sword again, the disciples of the Zhongyu Dao sect collapsed. Hundreds of them fled in an uproar. They were defeated before the battle started. There were dozens more who were unwilling to escape, and Wu Yu killed a few more. After that, he still ran away in panic, and there were even elders of the Zhongyu Dao sect among them. The rest are monsters. Wu Yu killed the demons, but these demons were still ferocious and terrifying. They were either crawling or moving uneasily. The demonic aura soaring into the sky was the only thing that could compete with Wu Yu at this time. If you don't leave, you will die. Wu Yu issued an ultimatum, but the other party did not respond. This shows that they are loyal to the 9 Immortals and are much better than the disciples of the Zhongyu Dao sect. Wu Yu saw the evil spirits gathering behind him and were about to kill them. He didn't have much time left, so he picked up the sword again and prepared to kill. These monsters alone can't stop him. But at this moment, the voice of the 9 Immortals came. You guys, step back first. She actually made the demon retreat. Wu Yu was startled. Those demons obeyed her orders very much. When they heard this, they were unwilling to give in. They roared lowly and filled the sky with evil spirits, but they still turned around, turned into human forms, and left with the fairy sedan. If they don't leave, Wu Yu is sure to kill them all, but there will definitely be casualties in the Tongtian sword sect. He didn't even want any of his brothers to die in battle. Today, the disciples of the Zhongyu Dao sect scattered and fled, hiding in the mountains. Most of them gave up the fight and all the demons retreated. Wu Yu and the others' only opponents were the remaining evil ghosts. You stay together and I'll deal with these evil spirits. Wu Yu asked them to stick to this place. There were many 8th level Qi condensation realm here, as well as 2 elders who were teaching and enforcing the law. As long as they did not encounter the 10th level of Qi condensation realm, there would be no problem for the time being. But Wu Yu was prepared to go alone and take down the remaining ones. Kill all the evil spirits. Good. It's up to you, Wu Yu. Be safe, junior brother. Kill them to pieces without leaving any trace behind. Under the eyes of reverence, Wu Yu once again clashed head-on with those evil spirits. With just one man and one sword, he actually stopped thousands of evil ghosts and innocent souls. Hundreds of evil ghosts rushed past him, but they were quickly destroyed by the 2 elders who taught the law and enforced the law.
The real combat power of those evil ghosts was about the first level of Qi condensation realm. They were not too powerful, but just too powerful. Much more. Everyone looked around and saw the golden sword rolling on the battlefield. Every time it swept, a large number of evil ghosts were turned into ashes. The golden sword of the avenue was very hot, enough to burn these evil ghosts into ashes. Including Wu Yu, there are a total of 8 battlefields. However, in terms of scale, Wu Yu's side is the largest. Of course, only this side has formed a crushing force. The number of evil ghosts has decreased sharply. As for the innocent souls, as a result, without evil spirits, it can only make people mentally confused. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Countless innocent souls poured into Wu Yu's body, but they never returned. As time passed, about 30 breaths later, everyone saw that there were originally 2,000 evil ghosts, but now there were more than 100 left, which was no longer a problem. Although there were still a lot of innocent ghosts, they were of no use at all. On the battlefield of the backbone, Wu Yu almost wiped out everything by himself. Xuanhuan and Daozong fled, the demons retreated, and the evil ghosts died in battle. If someone at the 10th level of the Qi condensation realm intercepts and crushes Wu Yu, all the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect will probably be dead at this time. Wu Yu never thought that he would be able to reach the 8th level of the Qi condensation realm during this war. It was the 9 Immortals who gave him this opportunity. All he can say is that this is fate. His luck is better than that of the 9 Immortals. When the evil ghosts no longer posed a threat to the Tongtian sword sect, Wu Yu knew that he should join a stronger battlefield, the 5 Elders. With him joining, the balance of victory will definitely tilt. He is a bit far away from the 5th Elder's position now. Wu Yu had actually thought about it for a long time. The most terrifying one among the 5 opponents must be Tian Yujun. If the leader of the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea is killed, and he cooperates with the 5th Elder, the other demons, ghost cultivators, and people from the Xuanhuan Dao sect will definitely be killed one by one. After flying the evil ghost away for the last time and confirming that the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect were not in danger, Wu Yu raised his sword to the sky without saying a word. In fact, it didn't take much time for him to deal with the evil spirits and others, less than 100 breaths in total. On the battlefield of the 5th Elders, he quickly found Elder Shentu and Tian Yujun. However, after finding them, Wu Yu's expression changed drastically. Tian Yujun seems to be very scary. There is always countless blood mist surrounding his battlefield, blocking everyone's sight and making it impossible for people to see the battle situation inside. The blood mist was like a huge cocoon of blood, constantly stirring, as if it were the same creature. Its bloody smell permeated the Blue Mountains, making people very uncomfortable. But when Wu Yu was about to kill him, the blood mist actually dissipated, and in a short time, it became clear over there. However, when Wu Yu saw that scene, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. The ground over there was covered with blood. The ground and rocks in a radius of about 100 feet were almost covered with blood. Tian Yujun's short body stood on a stone. His cloak had flown out, revealing an old, shriveled face. It was so ugly that even when you opened the wrinkles, you could see dripping blood. It has a pair of eyes, one big and one small, a big open mouth, and a small little fingernail. The big eyes were covered with bloodshot eyes, and the bloodshot eyes even twisted like insects. But this is not the scary part. What was truly terrifying was that on the land in front of him stood a 10-foot-high pillar of blood. The surface of the blood pillar was pure black and covered with irregular scales, like snake scales or fish scales. The gaps between the scales are blood vessels, with scarlet blood flowing. From a distance, it looks like a blood net, wrapped around the blood column. What's even more terrifying is that those scales are still changing positions. They are constantly combining on the blood column, forming grimaces with scarlet eyes and bloody mouths.
They look like they are really alive, and their eyes are heartfelt. Fear, and in a short period of time, it changed many faces, and even had many faces at the same time, and it was never the same. That pillar of blood attracted Wu Yu, and Wu Yu immediately remembered its name. Feng Shui told him that Tian Yujun was almost invincible at the 10th level of Qi condensation realm, and could even barely compete with him. The most important reason was that he possessed a psychic magic weapon. Psychic magic weapons are higher-level magic weapons. They are psychic in nature and have a certain spirituality. Their power is much more powerful than ordinary magic weapons. The entire Tongtian sword sect, only Feng Shui and Lan Huayun have it. The same psychic weapon. This magical weapon of Tian Yujun is fierce and terrifying. It is said that it was forged by a powerful ghost cultivator in ancient times in the East China Sea. In addition to many precious materials, the souls of 100 of his enemies were also added to use the forbidden Taoist skills of ghost cultivators. Imprisoned in it, there is a transformation array in the magic weapon array, which allows the psychic magic weapon to be freely transformed between 1 foot and 10 feet. There is also the 100 ghosts entering the body formation. This magic weapon formation is the most terrifying. During battle, the hundreds of ghosts on the psychic magic weapon will follow the magic weapon or even the air and enter the enemy's body, causing 100 times the number of innocent souls. The effect is that it can bite flesh, soul, bones and even internal organs. There is also the 100 Ghosts Giant Power Array, which can bring the user great power to the extreme. This psychic magical weapon is the evil of the Red Sea, and is called the 100 Ghosts Blood Pillar. What made Wu Yu tremble was that under the blood pillar of hundreds of ghosts, there was the tattered body of Elder Shentu. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 174. The blood pillar of 100 ghosts was on the ground, pressing down on Elder Shentu. With its 10 feet high blood pillar, it was also a foot thick. This huge blood pillar of 100 ghosts had almost crushed Elder Shentu. He had lost his voice, and his eyes were weakly open. There seemed to be countless ghosts walking in his eyeballs, and the blood of his body was quickly being sucked in by the 100 ghosts' blood pillar. In the blink of an eye, this dilapidated corpse was swallowed and turned into a mummy. Boom! The earth shook. Tian Yujun took his time and put away the 100 ghost blood pillar. This was the fastest one to be solved among several battlefields. Now everyone has paid attention to this side. The bloodthirsty and gloomy look of Yujun that day, and the tragic situation of Elder Shentu, formed an extremely violent visual impact, causing unspeakable consequences. The terrible shock. The ugly Lord Tianyi was covered with blood and mist. The strongest elders of the Tongtian sword sect were all killed in his hands today. The evil spirit that belonged to ghost cultivators, together with the sea of blood of hundreds of millions of corpses under his feet, were the ghosts and gods who walked out of hell. No one can stop it. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The main reason why the 7 ghosts of Shihei can compete with Feng Xiya is Tian Yujun. Seeing this scene, many disciples of the Tongtian sword sect were in a good mood, but they fell to the bottom in an instant. Elder Shentu was the pillar of the Tongtian sword sect, and he died tragically on this battlefield so quickly. Wu Yu's victory had just freed them from the fear of the immortal war, but because of the blood mist that filled the sky, they fell into a dead mood again. For a moment, many people's faces turned pale, and their hands holding the sword were trembling. Wu Yu had just dealt with the evil ghost and was seeing this scene. Looking at the mutilated corpse, what came to mind was that in the forest of Tianyu, Elder Shentu and his group of young disciples fought tooth and nail to protect them while being surrounded by powerful enemies. Elder Shentu is an old friend of Feng Xiya, a brother in life and death, and the most trustworthy person in Feng Xiya. In the distance, Feng Shui looked crazy, his eyes were blood red, and he was roaring. Wu Yu had never seen him so angry. If he hadn't stopped Zhang Xie, he would have killed Xiang Tian Yujun. Faintly,
One could see the true nature of the master and benefactor, bursting into tears. Wu Yu. Suddenly, Wu Yu looked into his eyes. He unexpectedly found that his eyes were struggling. Obviously, he wanted Wu Yu to stop Tian Yujun and not let him go on a killing spree against the Tongtian sword section. At the same time, he was worried that Wu Yu would be killed by Tian Yujun. He had fought with Tian Yujun before, and he was worried about this. The killing power of man is fully understood. However, the reality did not allow Wu Yu to think too much. After Yujun killed someone that day, he flew toward the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect with a blood mist and a pillar of blood from hundreds of ghosts. Once his pillar of blood from 100 ghosts swept across, it would definitely produce the effect of Wu Yu's killing of evil spirits. Whoosh! Wu Yu held two swords, and a phantom flashed across his face, suddenly intercepting him in front of Tian Yujun. This collision, the tall golden immortal ape and the short, ugly but bloody ghost cultivator, created a huge wave that swept around. At that moment, when their eyes met, Wu Yu could clearly see that behind Yujun that day, there was a mountain of corpses. The sea of blood is endless, with countless evil ghosts and countless innocent souls wailing. Wu Yu, I really didn't expect that you would become my mortal enemy. If I had known this, I would have killed you right away. Tian Yujun was calm, his tone was cold, but his eyes were scanning Wu Yu. He never expected that 5 of his 7 brothers and sisters would be killed by Wu Yu, a junior. Seeing this junior rise against the sky, at this moment, he was actually fighting against him, even evenly matched. Not far away, Yu Sanji, who was fighting Elder Tugu, said, "Brother, let him live. The 9 immortals are so crazy. If you kill him, it will be even more troublesome." Tian Yujun chuckled and didn't say much, but it could be seen from his eyes that he did not agree with Yu Sanji's words. He and Zhang Xie communicate very well, and once they have defeated all their opponents, they will attack and kill the 9 immortals. The 9 immortals had allowed Wu Yu to grow to this extent, which was beyond the limit of their tolerance. The gap is here. Tian Yujun looked around and couldn't help but laugh. As long as Wu Yu is defeated, with his assistance, the other elders of the Tongtian sword sect will have to die in battle, and finally they will besiege Feng Xia and Lan Huayun together. This kind of group battle needs a gap the most. Whichever side opens the gap first will win. Can Wu Yu stop this ghost cultivator? Even Elder Shentu died in battle so quickly. Wu Yu must be in danger. If Wu Yu is killed, then we. The death of Elder Shentu and the terrifying blood pillar of hundreds of ghosts greatly stimulated their hearts. Ghost cultivators from the East China Sea are even more terrifying than demons among righteous cultivators. Several elders of the Xuanhuan Dao sect who were fleeing outside were hiding in the dark. Seeing Wu Yu stopping Tian Yujun, they couldn't help laughing. Wu Yu has expanded so much that even Tian Yujun can stop him. He is so bold. I'm afraid he still doesn't know that Lord Tianyi is twice as powerful as Lord Shen Er. He can defeat Lord Shen Er, and he is probably only a little better than Shen Tuesday, and Lord Tianyi is in the East China Sea. He is known as an invincible opponent under the Golden Elixir Avenue, killing people. It is said that he has killed countless people at the 4th level of the Qi condensation realm. 10. Looking at it this way, the possibility of our 3 parties winning is really high. That's right, if Wu Yu hadn't come out of nowhere, how could he be in such a state of embarrassment? Yes, Mr. Tianyi, we must let Wu Yu die miserably. Otherwise, there is no way to relieve the hatred in my heart. In our Xuanhuan Dao sect, so many people died in the battle. In fact, Wu Yu knew better than anyone how terrifying Tian Yujun was. He knew Elder Shentu's abilities, but to be killed by Tian Yujun so quickly was obviously that the opponent was only slightly stronger than him. Call. The battlefield was changing rapidly. That day, Yujun just sneered and held the 100 Ghost Blood Pillar with both hands. The 100 Ghost Blood Pillar transformation array used its power and grew to 10 feet in length. It was a giant pillar that held up the sky, with a fierce bloody breath. Hundreds of ghosts emerged, with cold scales. Lord Tianyi used his magic power to wrap around the blood pillar of hundreds of ghosts, and with a sneer, he used the blood pillar of hundreds of ghosts to set off thousands of waves of blood, and came with a blast. Before the psychic weapon could reach him, bursts of blood rained down. This battle is a test of Wu Yu's ability, so it attracts even more attention. Naturally, it makes people more nervous. The other battlefields seem to be evenly matched for the time being. Tianyu Jun is too strong, anyone who fights against him will make people nervous. The Great Golden Sword. Wu Yu's eyes were cold, he merged the two swords, and used the golden sword technique of the Great Dao. At this time, this huge golden sword seemed to be evenly matched with the 100 Ghost Blood Pillar. However, only after the real fight and collision did the terrifying power of the psychic magic weapon truly show itself. Boom boom boom. Between the rocks, an Optimus blood pillar and a golden giant sword collided one after another, hitting the sea of blood, sparks, and destructive mana, sweeping in all directions, causing the mountain to collapse everywhere. Everyone clearly saw that Lord Tianyi was advancing, while Wu Yu was pushed away time and time again, and the entire battlefield moved towards the location of the disciples of the Tongtian sword sect. That day, every time Yi Jun smashed it violently, it rolled with waves of blood. You could clearly see that Wu Yu's golden sword collapsed again and again, and even became stained with blood. The whole golden sword turned into blood, as if it had been poisoned. Wu Yu can't stop him. What to do? For a moment, everyone was in a panic. If it weren't for the elders who taught the exercises and enforced the law, they would have dispersed. Even so, seeing him retreat again and again, everyone's faces were still full of worry. In fact, the situation Wu Yu faced was even more terrifying. Boom! Tianyu Jun smiled, swung the huge 100 Ghost Blood Pillar, and hit it again, but Wu Yu once again blocked it with the Great Dao Golden Sword. With a clang, the Great Dao Golden Sword almost shattered, and among the cracks, there was something from the 100 Ghost Blood Pillar. The blood rushed in. The blood pillar of 100 ghosts already had a huge power formation, and just the impact was enough to make Wu Yu drink a pot. After several times, his arms were covered with blood, and his indestructible body was broken. What's even more frightening is that in every confrontation, there are a large number of foreign objects on the 100 Ghost Blood Pillar that are similar to the wronged souls, but much more terrifying than the wronged souls, and pour into Wu Yu's body through the magical weapons. That is the 100 ghosts in this psychic weapon. All kinds of ghosts swarmed into Wu Yu's body, opened his bloody mouth, and bit into the muscles, bones, blood vessels, internal organs, and even the spirit and will. Hundreds of ghosts entered the body and instantly dragged Wu Yu into the whirlpool of death. The whole world went dark, and he fell into the sea of blood. He couldn't see the light of day. He was surrounded by crazy evil ghosts, tearing apart his flesh and blood with their sharp claws and biting his body. Looking from the outside, Wu Yu continued to retreat. After more than 10 confrontations, his golden body turned into black and red. Death energy was rising from his body. Even the faces of hundreds of ghosts appeared in his hair and skin. Like the blood pillar of hundreds of ghosts, they are crazy, roaring, crying. The older he gets, the more fragile he becomes, becoming more and more like an evil spirit. Wu Yu, it's finished. Many people were desperate. They absolutely believed in Wu Yu and even worshipped him. But at this moment, what they saw was that he was gradually walking into Elder Shentu's back. In the next moment, he would lose his resistance and be hit with a stick. Flat. The atmosphere of despair spread throughout the Tongtian sword section. Many people wanted to help, but they were unable to do anything. They could only pray with tears. Wu Yu felt their despair. His eyes penetrated the sea of blood and saw their worries and pain. He saw the entire Blue Wave Mountains, now caught in the chaos of war. I. Upon inspection, he found that his body was filled with hundreds of ghosts. This was the reason for his weakness. The 100-ghost blood pillar is so terrifying. Without the 100-ghost blood pillar, Tian Yujun would definitely not be my match. Wu Yu knew clearly that Tian Yijun was able to crush him only because of the 100-ghost blood pillar. Today, Wu Yu is facing death. On that day, Yujun looked at him with contempt, raised the 100-ghost blood pillar from a high position, and smashed it down. Go to hell. Genius. Once you die, it's nothing. Yujun laughed that day. The whole body is filled with pleasure. Wu Yu gritted his teeth. Who said that he didn't have the unique skills to win the bottom of the box? The only thing he needed was a gamble. Great sage. In his heart, the figure bathed in golden flames looked at him sternly. Wu Yu was deeply shocked under this gaze. For a moment, he forgot about the hundreds of ghosts entering his body and the physical trauma. There was only one road in front of him, and at the end of the road was Tian Yujun. Wu Yu looked at him, extremely firm and determined. The body holding technique. 72 changes. Just when Tian Yujun dropped his stick, it blew on him. Tai Chi, Yin and Yang. At the same time, the golden sword disappeared, the black and white Dao sword split into two, and the magical sword technique was used. In an instant, two Yin and Yang fish were formed, and they passed through Yujun's body that day. I have to take a flight today. I wrote a chapter at the airport. I will update it first. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 175. Chapter 174 Finale. The body fixation technique was successful. As Wu Yu used pure magic, although he relied on the guidance of the great sage to perform this magical spell, he did not know its root, but he became more and more proficient, and the chance of success became higher and higher. U003E. Against Tian Yujun, who possesses the 100-ghost blood pillar, Wu Yu's only way to make a comeback is with the body holding technique. He had even prepared to die here if the immobilization technique failed. Perhaps, the great sage equaling heaven and the fighting victorious Buddha were there to help him. At least this time, Wu Yu concentrated his whole body and mind into a cone, and performed the body holding technique penetratingly, even for a moment. In a battle between masters, a lot can be decided in one moment. Lord Tianyi led hundreds of ghosts to fight, and the blood pillar of hundreds of ghosts covered the top, but for such an instant, Wu Yu's newborn yin and yang sword penetrated his body. If the nascent yin-yang yuki sword evolves to a deeper level, forming the Tai Chi sword intention, and then has the immortal root yin-yang sword wheel as the foundation, the lethality and penetrating power will be even greater. With one sword blow, densely packed swords will explode from Tian Yujun's body. The blood hole, for a moment, blood was flying. The blood pillar of the 100 ghosts was thrown away, fell to the ground with a crash, and then rolled down the mountain, destroying all the trees and rocks along the way. The water on the mountain also suddenly evaporated, and the fish and shrimp were turned into blood mist. The blood column swallowed it. Well. That day, Yujun still had some consciousness. When he hit the ground, he got up with difficulty. The big eye had been pierced by Wu Yu, and the remaining small eye stared at Wu with shocking and unbelievable eyes. Even if he died, he didn't know what happened to his sudden inability to move. He had the upper hand and was about to kill Wu Yu immediately. Who knew that in a reversal, Wu Yu would kill him? What method did you use? Tian Yujun struggled and roared with his last strength, his body covered with bulging veins. Only you are not qualified to know. Wu Yu let go of the black and white Taoist sword in his hand, flew out, and beheaded Tian Yujun on the spot. This generation of ghost heroes fell in Wu Yu's hands at this moment. Of the 7 ghosts of Shihei, 6 died in battle, and now there is only one Yu Sanji left. When Wu Yu beheaded Tian Yujun, no one reacted.
They only knew that Wu Yu once again exceeded the limit of everyone's imagination, and unexpectedly reversed course at the moment of death and killed Tian Yujun forcefully. The strongest man under the golden cordeo basically didn't have much chance to leave any last words, so he returned to the west with a tone of reluctance. Everyone's mood could not calm down for a long time. They could only look at Wu Yu with eyes like looking at a god. Perhaps from this moment on, he became an omnipotent person. In fact, Wu Yu was already very tired after today's battle, especially after using the immobilization technique, which consumed a lot of energy, and the mana vortex all over his body was dimmed. Although he was recovering quickly, the mental exhaustion could not be recovered. Especially just now, hundreds of ghosts were added to the body, and life and death were on the line. It wasn't until Tian Yujun died in battle that the hundreds of ghosts dissipated from his body. But, he didn't stop fighting. Now is still the time when we need him most. After killing Lord Tianyi, Wu Yu instantly set his sights on the last of the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea, Yu Sanji. She is fighting with Elder Dugu, no matter who is the superior or the inferior. The swordsmanship of the Lonely Elder is also very advanced. Wu Yu dodged and rushed behind Yu Sanji. Yu Sanji noticed him, but she couldn't get rid of Elder Dugu, so she was besieged. Wu Yu, you will die miserably. We, the 7 Immortals of the Red Sea, have countless friends in the East China Sea, as well as countless powerful golden elixirs. You killed our 7 Immortals of the Red Sea today, and our friends will definitely settle the score with you. When the time comes, you will be unable to live or die. We ghost cultivators will become your nightmare. You will never be able to get rid of it forever. Don't think that you can do anything just because you are extremely talented. You have made a huge mistake. She never thought that her eldest and second brothers would die in the battle, and she still finds it unbelievable in her heart, but the fact is right in front of her, and at this time, it is hers that Wu Yu wants to destroy. Wu Yu didn't answer her at all. He could only rush forward, join the battle with the black and white Dao sword, and attack and kill Yu Sanji with Elder Dugu. That Yu Sanji was worse than the second Lord God. Under the strong attack of Wu Yu and Elder Dugu, Wu Yu's head flew out in a short time. At this time, the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea were completely gone. After they died in the battle, all the evil ghosts of the wronged souls also fell apart and disappeared. The ghost energy soaring into the sky on the battlefield finally dissipated at this moment. The only ones left were the ascetics and the demons. Among them, the demons did not stay, but retreated further and further away. Tian Yujun and Yu Sanji died in battle. Not to mention Zhang Xie, even an ordinary Xuanhuan Dao sect disciple knew that their 3-party alliance was completely defeated. The Bibo Mountains probably still belong to the Tongtian sword section at this moment. The 3 parties have fallen behind and have almost no room for improvement. Wu Yu was so powerful that he could kill even Tian Yujun, which naturally made Zhang Xie so angry that he vomited blood. Now that Yu Sanji has died in the battle, the liberated Wu Yu and the Lonely Elder have joined the battle against the remaining 3 people at the 10th level of the Qi condensation realm. 2 of them are elders of the Xuanhuan Dao sect and 1 is a demon. Wu Yu focused on the monster and asked the 4 elders except Elder Shentu to deal with 2 people from the Xuanhuan Dao section. He faced the monster alone. After all, they are more of Xuanhuan Dao sect's opponents. 2 to 1, it won't take long to end the battle. When the time comes, they can help Feng Shui and Lan Huayun, and Tongtian sword sect will definitely win. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The demon is a wild bull. Unlike the liming bird, which is good at speed, this wild bull is violent and powerful, and can also control the earth. Under its control, the earth is like a rolling wave, with waves of impact, and there are huge stone pillars everywhere, and even huge stones falling from the sky. Wu Yu looked indifferent. Although his combat power was declining at this point, he was still confident that he could destroy the demon.
and then he was afraid that he would have to rest before he could continue fighting. Master, protecting the religion is actually the most critical. Wu Yu looked back, because these two battlefields are the most critical battlefields. Once there is a problem here, all the problems Wu Yu has had so far will be destroyed. But sometimes, what you worry about will happen. Wu Yu found that he had underestimated Juxian, and even more underestimated her determination to get him. This ultimate battle was all launched by her in anger. She could not have ignored Wu Yu. On the contrary, her goal from beginning to end was to get Wu Yu. Even at this time, the blue waves and mountains were no longer so important to her. Boom! There was a sudden loud noise. Everyone looked in amazement. It turned out that the sea in the sky suddenly collapsed. Lan Huayun was like a kite with a broken string, smashed into the mountains, and never got up again. There was no way to know whether she was dead or alive. Boom! Juxian fell to the ground, and her huge and enchanting tail spread out, twisting like a snake. Her scarlet eyes stared at Wu Yu at once. She actually defeated Lan Huayun. It was even possible that Lan Huayun had died in the battle. After all, she didn't get up again after smashing into a mountain. Obviously, even if she didn't die, she was seriously injured. At this time, Wu Yu was still preparing to kill the 1,000-year-old wild bull demon. At that moment, Wu Yu and Juxian's scarlet eyes collided. Obviously, all her battles today were for this moment. So, in that instant, her demonic body rolled towards Wu Yu, 10 miles in an instant, and instantly arrived in front of Wu Yu. The wild bull demon even helped Juxian to target Wu Yu. Wu Yu instinctively fled, but was entangled by the demon, which delayed him for a moment, and the other party was in front of him. Juxian, this 1,000-year-old demon created too many shadows in Wu Yu's heart. Wu Yu was never afraid of Tian Yujun, let alone Zhang Xie. Only Juxian made him fear from the bottom of his heart, or even fear, or in other words, at least in the current state, Juxian is his nemesis, a very yin existence. You should call me Jur. In a blink of an eye, the fox demon was 10 feet in front of him. She crawled in front of Wu Yu, staring at Wu Yu with her eyes, and the 9 tails behind her were raised high, like a peacock spreading its tail. This scene frightened everyone. Wu Yu, Jur is so disappointed in you. Jur is so good to you, but you took advantage of Jur and let her down, Juxian said resentfully. Wu Yu's eyes were cold. At this time, the wild bull had retreated, but Juxian was too close, and he was thinking of a way to escape. You let me down and deceived me. Wu Yu was trying to find a way while delaying time. He had consumed a lot of energy in the battle with Tian Yijun, and it was even more impossible for him to fight against Juxian, who was in a state of complete victory. Don't delay any longer. I'm going to take you far away, away from here. Wu Yu, don't blame Jur. You were the one who made Jur sad first. She became more and more angry as she spoke. Just after she finished speaking, Juxian's magic suddenly became more powerful, instantly making Wu Yu fall into a whirlpool of hallucinations. This was not temptation, but hallucination. Wu Yu could resist the temptation, but he couldn't resist Juxian's hallucination. In Juxian's hallucination, some painful memories kept flashing in his mind, such as Sun Wudao's death in battle, such as the night in Zai Hall, he drank the soul-breaking powder, such as on the way to the border, he was eaten alive by Wan Sheng. He stood in front of Juxian in pain, almost unable to hold the black and white sword in his hand. At this moment, Juxian wrapped his tail around him, and Wu Yu hardly resisted. Then, everyone thought that Juxian would use Wu Yu to threaten Feng Xia, but they didn't expect that Juxian would go north without saying anything, and disappeared in the blink of an eye, taking Wu Yu with him. Juxian, gone. Wu Yu, also taken away. She didn't want the Bibo Mountains, or even everything. Of course, the demons had retreated long ago, and the remaining wild buffaloes also chased the demons that left. Juxian, obviously gave up here. Now, the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea died in battle, and the demons disappeared with Wu Yu. Only the people of Xuanhuan Dao sect, Zhangxie, and 2 elders of the 10th level of condensation realm were left. People couldn't help but wonder, what changes will happen on the battlefield next? What was the outcome of the battle between Fengxia and Zhangxie? At least, Xuanhuan Dao sect has no chance to occupy Bibo Mountains again. Mobile users /u003ch//u003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 176. Zhu Xian and Wu Yu flew away, bringing even greater changes to the battlefield B/U003E. Now only the Xuanhuan Dao sect and the Tongtian Sword sect are left to duel. The Tongtian Sword sect's ability to gain the absolute upper hand is closely related to Wu Yu's repeated reversals. It can even be said that Wu Yu is a great contributor to the entire Tongtian Sword sect. The 9 Immortals kidnapped him. In fact, the battle between Feng Shui and Zhangxie has reached the final stage, especially after the 9 Immortals defeated Lan Huayun. Feng Shui became even more violent, pushing himself to the extreme, as if crazy. The remaining 2 elders of the 10th level of the Qi condensation realm of Xuanhuan Dao sect are gradually losing ground. In this life and death battle, they are besieged by 2 opponents of the same level. Any oversight will lead to death or injury. There are 3 major battlefields left. Everyone couldn't help but focus on Feng Shui and Zhangxie, the 2 top Jindan Dao masters. They are the heads of the sects of ascetics from thousands of miles around. The characters who have been compared together a long time ago have had many battles before, but they were all done at the point where they didn't even use their full strength. At this moment, it was a real fight. On this battlefield, others only saw Feng Xia's endless golden sword energy, as well as Zhangxie's numerous and complex Taoist methods. This was a showdown between sword cultivators and ordinary Taoists. In general, Feng Xia's attacks have been sharper from the beginning, especially now that the will is united. Feng Xia, grandson, even if there are no demon cultivators, I, Zhangxie, will defeat you. During the battle, Zhangxie became even more arrogant and even noisy. From beginning to end, Feng Shui didn't say a word, especially after Wu Yu was kidnapped. Hearing this, the disciples of the Tongtian Sword sect began to get nervous. Now that Lan Huayun has been defeated, if the headmaster is also defeated, then no one can stop Zhangxie. Now Zhangxie has long been jealous and will definitely the Tongtian Sword sect suffered heavy losses. Wan Tianyuxio said, "Everyone, go back to the Bibo Mountains and disperse. Don't let Zhangxie have the opportunity to attack us." He did this not because he didn't trust Feng Xia, but it was an effective precaution. Everyone dispersed one after another, and there were still a few people standing here. Wan Tianyuxio took a look and saw that it was Su Yanli and the others. There were only a few people, all staring blankly in one direction, which was the direction where Wu Yu was kidnapped. "We have no way to save him, we can only hope that he will be lucky and escape this disaster." Wan Tianyuxio thought of everything Wu Yu brought this time, and her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Being able to become a senior brother in this life is also a blessing given to us by God. It's a pity that as a senior brother, I am useless and can only watch him being taken away. Mo Shishu sighed sadly, with a sad expression on his face. As for Su Yanli, Qing Mang, and the others, they were even more speechless and choked, as if they had all had their souls taken away by Wu Yu. "I'm afraid I'll never see you again." Su Yanli put away the Liri Liu and decided to go back to the Bibo Mountains, looking lonely. At this moment, a scream of jealousy and unwillingness came from the huge battlefield. "Feng Xia, you!" Countless people looked in shock,
only to see Zhang Xie's head suddenly fly out, and then in the golden sword light, both the body and the head were directly annihilated, and even turned into powder, dissipated in the air, and under the sunlight, sparkling. Zhang Xie's scream stopped abruptly. On the other hand, Feng Xia stood on the branch of a strong pine tree and almost fell down, but still persevered. Although the hand holding the sword was still shaking, at least the sword did not fall out of hand. At this time, Zhang Xie's psychic tools fell into Feng Shui's hands. After a moment of silence, people finally began to react. It turned out that Zhang Xie, the leader of the Xuanhuan Dao sect, died in battle and was killed on the spot by Feng Shui, who was of similar strength. Wow! A large number of Xuanhuan Dao sect disciples who were still hiding in the distance suddenly lost their minds, panicked, cried bitterly, and completely lost their support. The Xuanhuan Dao sect, retire! One of the elders screamed sadly, and was then killed by two elders of the Tongtian sword sect. The remaining elder was also in critical condition and almost died in the battle. However, at this time, Feng Shui waved his hand and asked the fourth elder to let him go, saying, Xuanhuan Dao sect was defeated and lost 4/5 of its strength. Being reduced to a small sect is nothing to be afraid of. Just leave one person to take charge, lest the disciples kill each other and disrupt the mortal kingdom. Leave one person in charge so that the Xuanhuan Dao sect can still exist. Otherwise, the remaining disciples will be leaderless and may do something stupid. Yes. The fourth elder obeyed the order, but now they finally breathed a sigh of relief. They were actually exhausted and their faces were pale. They were all Lan Huayun's confidants. They couldn't wait to see Lan Huayun's injury. The elders of the Xuanhuan Dao sect, crying and leading the stunned disciples of the Xuanhuan Dao sect, returned in panic, like a human tragedy. The evil spirits were slain, the demons were in decline, and the Xuanhuan Dao sect was defeated. Now in the Blue Mountains and the 10,000 Swords and Stone Gate, only the Tongtian sword sect's people are left. The war is over, they have won, but even so, everyone's hearts are filled with confusion. There is only confusion. Victory is just the aftermath, and it doesn't seem worth getting excited about. At least they are missing a very important piece in their hearts, and that is Wu Yu. Yuxue, I'll leave the rest to you. I'll go find Wu Yu. After Feng Shui said this, he flew with his sword and chased in the direction of Wu Yu. This was where he forced himself to limit, the reason to kill Zhang Xie. Yes, master. Soon, Feng Xie cliff galloped away. We must find him and bring him back safely. Everyone looked at Feng Xie expectantly, and without exception, they all thought this in their hearts. The only thing left is to clean up the battlefield. When they cremated the corpses one by one and cleaned up the blood on the battlefield, they were all a little unbelievable when they looked at such unfamiliar faces. The three parties were almost 3 times as powerful as them. Unexpectedly, they kept holding on to now, even without much loss, the 3 parties suffered a disastrous defeat. All the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea were killed in the battle, and almost all the high-level combat forces of the Xuanhuan Dao sect were killed. Everything that is happening in front of us is like a dream to everyone. The feeling of surviving this disaster is really unbelievable. Frankly speaking, without Wu Yu, the Bibo Mountains should have been occupied by the enemy by now. We are all corpses, and then we were cleaned up by others and devoured by demons. While cleaning, a disciple said sadly, "He is a miracle of the Tongtian sword section. He was born suddenly to protect our Tongtian sword section. This myth-like existence is estimated to be passed down for many years. Future generations will know that there is such a magical figure. 1. His future will definitely be unparalleled." The headmaster said that his real stage is the entire Dongsheng divine continent, not a small place like ours. It's a pity that he was captured by the 1,000-year-old fox demon. I'm afraid we will never see him again. When the last words were spoken, many people shed tears. In order to protect their homeland and fight together, they are now more determined in their Taoism and are naturally more persistent in their path to immortality. Sword cultivator, stand upright, slay demons, protect compatriots, and uphold justice. The heart is as straight as a sword, tough and hard. Hoo hoo. The violent sound of wind kept passing by my ears. Wu Yu is really miserable now, because the 9 foxtails of the 9 immortals are now tightly wrapped around him, not even a single hair is exposed. It is like a cocoon, completely sealing Wu Yu in it. The 9 tails and their magic power formed a complete sphere. The 9 immortals used some magic method to form a cage with the 9 fox demons, locking Wu Yu to death. Even if his physical strength was stronger than that of the 9 immortals, he could not break free at this time. After all, Wu Yu was too far behind her in terms of magic power. Wu Yu couldn't see outside. He only knew that the 9 immortals were rushing frantically, probably looking for an absolutely safe place. After I leave, the Tongtian sword sect will have the absolute upper hand. Zhang Xie will not be able to get any advantage, and will even be severely damaged. This time, the Xuanhuan Dao sect is destined to suffer a disastrous defeat. This was the only comfort in Wu Yu's heart. Although his current situation is extremely dangerous, at least the crisis for the Tongtian sword sect has been resolved, and the disaster caused by the 3 parties has been completely resolved by them. Now the Tongtian sword sect has become the biggest winner. But the 9 immortals are still there. She gave up the Bibo Mountains first, and her first target became me. As long as she devours me, completes her transformation, and becomes the 4th level of the Golden Core realm, she alone can protect me to the death. The Tongtian sword sect was completely destroyed. When Wu Yu thought of this, he couldn't help but feel frantic. Wu Yu, you already know Zhuer's purpose, right? Zhuer didn't expect that you even know my secret method. Otherwise, you wouldn't resist me so strongly. Juxian's moving voice rang in Wu Yu's ears. But now, no matter how beautiful her face is and how pleasant her voice is, Wu Yu has no intention of it anymore. To Wu Yu, she is like a natural enemy, a beast that wants to eat him. Yeah, Wu Yu didn't hide it, the other party already knew it. Then I'll tell you the truth. This time, you have no way to survive. You are so important to me and are the most important opportunity in my life. I can't give up on you, Juxian said firmly. Wu Yu said, I understand, but after you succeed, can you stop going to the Bibo Mountains? No, I want to go. That will be the new home of my demon clan. Juxian's voice was weak, but in fact it was extremely firm. What are you going to do to my master and the others? Wu Yu asked again with a cold tone. If Fengxia is not destroyed, it will create more trouble for me. Therefore, in order to prevent its revenge in the future, no disciples of Tongtian sword sect can be left behind. If you get me and complete your transformation, you will have gained enough. For my sake, can you spare them? At least, don't kill them all like this. The 9 immortals were sometimes as gentle as water, and sometimes ruthless. Now Wu Yu discovered that her gentleness was all an illusion, and her ruthlessness was the truth. Everything is false. This is it, Fox. Therefore, Juxian said, Wu Yu is just a transformation medicine to Zhuer. Now that you understand, Zhuer can only tell you that I am a demon and you are a human. I only hate you. Mobile user /u003ch/u003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 177. After 3 months of getting along, it seemed like we were inseparable, but in fact it was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. B/u003e. It's just a tiger teasing its prey. Wu Yu had long understood that everything the 9 immortals created in front of him was an illusion. This was a terrible woman who had never changed her purpose at all. Now, when she knows that Wu Yu understands the truth, she doesn't pretend at all. After all, she understands that in the secret method of the demon clan,
the relationship between the two only determines the depth of transformation. Even if there is no emotion, she will reach the golden age. The fourth level of Dan Avenue. At this point, Xuanhuan no longer has the patience to create a false relationship. So that's it? The last bit of goodwill I had for you is gone. 9 Immortals, I only have hatred for you. If I have the chance, I will definitely kill you. Wu Yu took a deep breath and said. There is no difference between you and Zhang Xie. Zhang Xie just wanted to kill me cleanly. You also wanted to kill me, but you just modified the process. Now that the purpose is exposed, you are just like Zhang Xie. Xuanhuan chuckled and said, otherwise, given that you are a peerless genius and have a bright future, will Zhu'er fall in love with you? Zhu'er only loves himself and never loves others. Being tightly controlled by him, Wu Yu tried many methods, but basically nothing worked. About a few days later, the 9 Immortals suddenly stopped. The power restrained on his body suddenly relaxed, and Wu Yu fell on the ground. I immediately got up and looked around. I found that I was inside a cave. The space was relatively huge. The mountain walls were surrounded by solid rocks. There was some smoke in the cave, which slightly obscured my view. This is my territory, Hyuki Mountain. In front of her was a beautiful Juxiao fox with scarlet eyes, covered in snow-white body, with its front legs slightly bent on the ground, staring at herself. Its eyes were full of desire, and it was obvious that she was extremely hungry. Unexpectedly, she took him back to her base camp. Honestly, this place shouldn't be hard to find. Beyond Hyuki Mountain, there is a natural maze that is even bigger and more complicated than your immortal Fate Valley. Even if your master comes here, he won't be able to find us in less than 10 days, so you'd better not hug us. What a fantasy. The 9 Immortals basically announced Wu Yu's death sentence with one sentence. Wu Yu looked around. He didn't know where the exit of the cave was. It had obviously been sealed by the 9 Immortals. It felt a bit like the small room at the bottom of the mountain in Xuanhuan Valley. In this place, there were only 2 of him and the 9 Immortals. It is true that the sky is not responding and the earth is not working. Looking around, in addition to the thick wall, there was something directly in front that attracted Wu Yu's attention. It was a beautiful Juxiao fox that was about the same size as the 9 Immortals. However, the eyes of this beautiful Juxiao fox were dull and motionless. The most important thing is that it is not alive, but an ice sculpture, as if carved from ice, but it is so lifelike that Wu Yu almost thought it was an ice fox. Apart from this Juxiao beautiful fox ice sculpture, there is nothing else. Xuanhuan didn't seem to be in a hurry. After all, this place was completely closed, and she was sure of it, and she wasn't afraid of anyone coming to rescue her. She stared at the ice-sculptured fox with nostalgia and anger in her eyes, and said, "This is my sister." Sister, Wu Yu thought it was just an ice sculpture. Speaking of this ice sculpture, Xuanhuan became a little manic. She stared at Wu Yu and said, "Yes, she is my sister. We grew up together, practiced together, looked for the pure yang body together, and completed the journey of our 9 heavens beautiful fox transformation. It's a pity that she was harmed by you cultivators before she succeeded." Wu Yu needed time most now to think of a way to fight against the 9 Immortals. Since the other party brought up this topic, of course he took advantage of it and asked, "Isn't it possible, demon, how could he turn into this ice sculpture?" The 9 Immortals were very irritable, their claws and tails rolled and vibrated in the cave, and they screamed, "She is stupid. She fell in love with the cultivator, and she was willing to give up the transformation of our Juxiao Maihu for him. She was killed by that cultivator. I was deceived by sweet words and lost the chance of transformation by marrying him. The funny thing is that the ascetic was just greedy for her beauty and didn't love her at all. Later, he had some conflicts with my sister, so he called the disciples directly. Use golden elixir magic to turn my sister into an ice sculpture. This sounds like a sad story. Perhaps this is what made the current 9 Immortals official. Humans and monsters are natural enemies of life and death, and there is no emotion at all. It's just that she is so stupid that she doesn't even understand such a simple truth, yet she is willing to give everything for that man, and in the end she even loses her life. So, Jur, I won't even believe you. Today, I will fulfill our sister's long-cherished wish, and I will transform into the Juxiao spirit fox. I will rush to the 4th level of core formation. This is always for myself and for my sister. One day, I will avenge her and make the person who harmed her pay back at all costs. At this point, her eyes became redder and more fierce, and the look she looked at Wu Yu became more hateful. This was her true face. Wu Yu didn't expect that she had such a story. Perhaps, it is understandable that she hates people and feels sorry for her sister, but she regards Wu Yu as a springboard for transforming into the Juxiao spirit fox. There is no good or evil in the dispute between humans and demons. People have emotions and intelligence, and so do demons. The 9 Immortals are not evil, but I was born in the opposite camp to her. If she wants me dead, she is my natural enemy, my enemy. Wu Yu knew that it was precisely because of this that no matter how good she was not worthy of sympathy. At this point, the 9 Immortals seemed to have little patience. Her eyes were scarlet, and her 9 tails were dancing wildly, as if attacking prey, and she was crawling towards Wu Yu step by step. The cave was so big, Wu Yu could only retreat. A few steps and there is no way to escape. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. At this moment, it can be said to be truly thrilling. Are you so sure that you will take over me? 9 Immortals. Wu Yu moved, drew out his black and white swords, and stared at her. Otherwise, Zhu Xian sneered. From any direction, it was impossible for Wu Yu to escape from Huqi Mountain. Even Minglong ran out, looked around, and said with a grimace, Wu Yu, you are so miserable. You finally got this heaven-defying inheritance, and ended up in this absolute death situation. There's nothing I can do to save you. Are you serious? Wu Yu was a little unbearable. Minglong rolled his eyes and said, Grandma, I still lied to you. If you can leave here alive today, I will call you Grandpa. After saying that, she rolled back to the golden cudgel. She was just an inexplicable remnant of her soul, and there was nothing she could do to help Wu Yu. Even Minglong said such words, which can only show that the possibility of Wu Yu's escape is basically non-existent. Unless he reaches the 9th level of Qi condensation realm, but for now, that will take several months of training, and it is impossible to suddenly improve in Qi condensation. As the 9 Immortals approached, Wu Yu was sweating profusely. Is my path to spiritual cultivation really going to stop here? Let this fox demon treat itself as a delicacy and feast on it? The successor of the majestic monkey king Kishan has become a corpse in a cave? Create the rise of a fox demon? Thrilling, your whole body is tense. Wu Yu, Jur will thank you. He will even remember you for the rest of his life. Juxian's final tone was still gentler, but under the gentleness, murderous intent suddenly rushed out. Boom! The 1,000-year-old fox demon is coming in shock. Tai Chi, Yin, and Yang. Wu Yu struck out with both swords. This was a move that could kill Tian Yujun. The 9 tails of the 1,000-year-old fox demon tumbled, instantly wrapped into a ball, spinning at high speed, instantly shattering the newborn yin-yang chi sword. You are so weak, the fox demon chuckled. Great golden swordsmanship. The 2 swords merged into one, and the golden sword slashed violently. As a result, the 9 tails of the fox demon were as hard as iron and could be blocked easily. At this moment, Wu Yu understood more clearly that the golden elixir realm is a level above the Qi condensation realm. I am afraid that he has reached it.
There is still a huge gap between the 9th level of Qi condensation realm and her in terms of mana. I do have a psychic weapon. In a flash, the 9 immortals transformed into human form. The graceful figure flickered in the clouds and mist. Wu Yu vaguely saw a silver chain in her hand. The chain suddenly expanded, rolling around like a giant snake, and broke. The air made a hissing sound, and in an instant, Wu Yu's black and white Dao sword flew out. This is crushing. It also made Wu Yu understand that the road to cultivation is endless. No matter how talented he is, there will always be people who can crush him, such as these 9 immortals. Certainly. Finally, he cast the body holding technique, but unfortunately the mana gap between it and the 9 immortals was too great. Coupled with the impact on his will, the body holding technique failed as expected. Minglong sighed and said, "Boy, it's not that I don't want to save you, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know how many thousands of years, or even forever, I have to wait for your death. It's really..." When she talked about it later, she was in tears. Finally, she said, "However, it is a kind of enjoyment for such a beautiful fox demon to take possession of you before you die. Sometimes life is like this. Since you can't resist, just enjoy it. I'll hide and cry first. Yeah, I'm embarrassed to see this kind of scene that's not suitable for children." There are 2 more chapters between 22-23 o'clock in the evening. Mobile users /u003ch//u003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 178. Whoosh. Silver chains flew around and phantoms swept across, bringing Wu Yu into the clouds and mist. Everything in front of me is psychedelic, and the whole world is blurring. Wu Yu knew clearly that this was the method of the 9 immortals, but even though he knew it in his heart, he could not escape from this evil method in this crushing level of confrontation. Even if Wu Yu visualized the mental ape and even recited the inner Vajra Sutra, he could not stop the invasion of this fox demon's magic. 9 immortals can even severely injure Lan Huayun. This defeat made Wu Yu even more aware that there is no end to the path of spiritual cultivation. No matter how fast you advance, you need to maintain a sense of awe. Now, the strength of the 9 immortals awes him. However, it also made him rebel and made his chest surge. 9 immortals. Even Minglong was desperate. "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." Wu Yu's eyes were blood red, looking for traces of the 9 immortals in this psychedelic world. After collisions and killings again and again, at this moment, he was already in the state of an immortal ape. A golden ape, resisting with all his strength in the midst of heavy restrictions, rising up against the chaos. But the 9 immortals were like demons, with no trace at all. On the other hand, the silver chain kept colliding with Wu Yu, hitting him and making him bleed. Whoosh. That time, the silver chain hit Wu Yu's head. Well. At that moment, Wu Yu felt fatal dizziness. This was not an ordinary dizziness. It must be the effect of the psychic magic weapon itself. There must be a magic weapon array that caused dizziness. Wu Yu felt dizzy for a while, as if he was drunk. He fell to the ground. Boom. After falling to the ground, the whole world turned upside down, as if in the depths of the sea, the soil turned into sea water, rolling up waves. Even, countless fantasies began to appear, affecting the mind. Its name is Silver Charm. It was a gift from my sister in a daze, a gentle word lingered in my ears. I don't know when, a pair of small hands cupped Wu Yu's face. "Wu Yu, don't be angry with Jur. What Jur said is all lies to you." In a daze, a woman with rare beauty in the world appeared in front of him. All the words of praise in the world can be used, for there was always something missing about her. Her beauty was breathtaking. Just looking at her made it difficult to breathe, almost suffocating, and she was completely immersed in her beauty. With tears in her eyes, she asked, "Wu Yu is willing to forgive Jur?"
Wu Yu had forgotten who she was, but how could there be such a perfect woman in the world? How could he bear to refuse? So he nodded subconsciously and said, "Of course I won't be angry with you anymore. Wu Yu is so kind to Ju'er. Ju'er is willing to serve Wu Yu for the rest of his life and give everything, including his virginity and even his life, to Wu Yu." She pressed her face against Wu Yu's chest, feeling aggrieved. He said, "Wu Yu must not let Ju'er down. After tonight, Ju'er will be Wu Yu's for the rest of his life. In this life, no man will touch Ju'er, otherwise Ju'er will definitely kill him." Wu Yu seemed to be living in a dream. He thought for a moment and was convinced that he was dreaming. Suddenly he remembered that he would be enthroned and proclaimed emperor tomorrow. From then on, he was in charge of Dongyu Kingdom, and he was the emperor of his generation. I didn't expect that on the eve of my ascension to the throne, I would dream of such a beautiful woman. Could this be some kind of hint from God? In the future, I will strengthen Suchao and become a meritorious emperor. Thinking of this, Wu Yu was a little happy. It was a dream anyway. Inside, he didn't care about anything, so he roughly pressed the woman under him, and started chewing without saying a word. The woman quickly ignited the fire on Wu Yu's body, burning like gasoline poured on it, and the fire reached the sky. Out of control. How could there be such a real and touching woman in this dream? Wu Yu was shocked in his heart. He stared at the graceful 9 immortals under him. His every smile and every move was a fatal temptation. Like this, there won't be any sanity at all. Wu Yu, you should take pity on Ju'er and be gentle. The woman seemed to be talking in her sleep, and her voice was even more maddening. She felt that tonight was definitely the most beautiful moment in her life. It's just a dream anyway, just be happy, don't care about all that. Wu Yu thought about it and became rude. He moved his hands up and down, not missing any place that should be touched. This woman was like a whirlpool. In the blink of an eye, just swallow him deeply into this whirlpool. Next, it went very smoothly. In the cave, the 9 immortals' eyes were scarlet, and their bodies were wrapped around Wu Yu. They stretched out their fox tongue and wrapped it around Wu Yu's neck. Unfortunately, Wu Yu could not see this. The mouth and tongue are also the entrances and exits for Yu and Yang. This kind of pure Yang body can only be tasted once in this life. I'd better taste it slowly. Juxian looked at the man in front of him who was completely controlled by him, and his scarlet eyes struggled a little. For a moment. To be honest, he has a pure heart and is willing to protect the section. He has a pure heart and is a good person. But, the fault is that he met me. To repay you, you will be my Ju'er's husband in this life. After you die, I will set up a tombstone for you and pay homage to you every year. In this life, I will never talk about male and female affairs again, and I will not have any interaction with any man. Ju'er thought about this and kissed Wu Yu. In fact, he had already cast a magic spell to capture the essence of Wu Yu's body from his mouth and tongue, replenishing himself and perfecting his yin and yang. My sister and I obtained this Tianhe golden pill technique together, and we vowed that we would succeed together in the future. Unfortunately, today, I am the only one left on Huqi Mountain. When she missed her sister, Ju'er closed her eyes and recalled the years of growing up together in her mind, and couldn't help but burst into tears. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Sister, I succeeded. She saw that Wu Yu's body was a huge treasure to her, like an ocean full of yang energy. When she used the Sky Fox casting golden pill technique, it was like a straw inserted into Wu Yu's body. Yu's body began to swallow. This is just the beginning. The 9 immortals were just trying it out for the first time. If the fox casting golden elixir method was really activated that day, and the two were combined, Wu Yu would not be able to last for 10 breaths, and his whole body would be exhausted and completely wiped out. Today's 9 immortals can only use his lips and tongue. Let's have a taste of it, just this taste, directly let it enter the crazy forbidden land. waiting for thousands of years, just for this moment. Boom boom. The billowing yang energy burned on Wu Yu's body, forming a flame visible to the naked eye. The stronger the flame burned, his flesh and blood would begin to fail, and the indestructible body that was finally forged would fundamentally change. After being disintegrated, the physical body cannot hold up the magic power and will quickly explode and die. The billowing yang energy was swallowed by the 9 immortals with their mouths and integrated into her body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although this was just the beginning, it also completely ignited the 9 immortals. Wu Yu was pinned to the ground for a moment, going crazy. Swallow. Well. At this moment, Wu Yu suddenly felt extreme pain. The terrible feeling of flesh and blood exhaustion could not be concealed at all. In a daze, he found that the stunning woman in front of him instantly turned into a terrifying devil, as if she was sucking the blood from him. Blood. The scary thing is that he was completely entangled by the psychic magic weapon Silver Charm, unable to move at all, and the woman herself was in control of him. 9 immortals. Wu Yu thought of her. The 9 immortals ignored him and used both hands to pull his teeth apart like crazy. Even at this speed, she was not satisfied. For fear of remembering that the real Tianhu method of casting golden elixirs had not yet been fully used, she tore it open. Wu Yu's clothes were taken off, a pair of scarlet eyes flashed with extremely strong desire, which made Wu Yu's hair stand on end. Wu Yu, Jewer, you're welcome. Although the 9 immortals' eyes were scarlet, they smiled sweetly, and the faces of gods and demons were actually focused on her face at this moment. But even so, she didn't stop sucking on her mouth. She couldn't stop for a moment, as if a mouthpart had penetrated Wu Yu's body, sucking wildly, while lingering up, unfolding an even more terrifying Tianhuzu. Once the golden elixir method is truly combined with Wu Yu's death is basically doomed. Now I can't say anything. Death, so close. I never thought that being invaded by such a beauty would be such a terrible thing. Anger. The wrath of heaven. Everything I had worked so hard to forge over so many days, I just watched the 9 immortals take it away. He was exiled from Suqiao, entered the Tongtian sword sect, almost came back from the dead, and rushed all the way to the present, becoming a talent that defies the heavens, rose up with revenge, and defended the Bibo Mountains. Why did all these efforts have to be ruined in the hands of the 9 immortals? Not willing to give in. The previous scenes were all passing before his eyes. Wu Yu missed the prosperity of Wudu, Wu Yu's understanding and tenderness, the green mountains and green waters of Tongtian sword sect, and the heroic spirit of swordsmanship. I miss the care and love of Su Yanli and other senior brothers and sisters. I miss Feng Shui's cultivation, and more importantly, his guidance on Wu Yu's path of cultivation. It is said that there are 3,000 immortal kingdoms in Dongsheng Divine Continent. Dongyu Wu Kingdom is just one of them, and the total area of the 3,000 immortal kingdoms is less than 1/3 of Dongsheng Divine Continent. The entire Dongsheng Divine Continent has the vast immortal sect, with a radius of thousands of miles, is just a remote place. What is even more reluctant is the inheritance of the immortal. That is the inheritance of the gods. Wu Yu dreamed of becoming an immortal, but his soul died here. What a pity. Having realized this, Wu Yu remembered that night he dreamed of the Optimus Prime, known as the Ruyi Golden Cudgel, standing tall against the sky and the earth. The Monkey King holding this divine object was really majestic and elegant. Straight and violent, this is Wu Yu's ambition. All rules in this world can be broken as long as they are unreasonable. The strong, make new rules, the strong, support new justice. If heaven has no way, it will bring chaos to the heavens. If the immortals have no way, they will kill the immortals and kill the gods. In the dark, Wu Yu's thoughts were all focused on the Ruyi Golden Cudgel. He couldn't help but think, how wonderful it would be if he could become the great sage equaling heaven in this life, and have that kind of heroic spirit and dominate the world. Unfortunately, it is haunted by demons. Hatred. I want to die with you. He also has weapons, which are teeth. However, the 9 immortals were even more crazy and suppressed him, making him unable to bite. Such a scene may seem glamorous to outsiders, but to Wu Yu, it was a death crisis. Die. His eyes were red and he was furious. Suddenly, when his mental will was violent to the extreme, when he understood the suppressed anger, when his anger and violence rose to a certain level, it actually formed a magical resonance with the Ruyi golden cudgel. The Ruyi golden cudgel suddenly appeared in his spiritual world, shook once, and a subtle golden light penetrated her body along the direction of the 9 immortals swallowing. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 179. In an instant, the face of the 9 immortals suddenly changed tragically. Although Wu Yu couldn't see where the golden light that suddenly appeared penetrated the 9 immortals' bodies, he knew that it should have instantly pierced the 9 immortals' demon elixir. It was precisely because of this that Zhu Xian's face changed to such a tragic degree, even distorted, so distorted that her beautiful face turned out to be ugly and ugly. At that moment, it seemed like it was still. The next moment, what Wu Yu didn't expect was that the 9 immortals actually spurted out a stream of heat, all of which poured into his mouth. Part of the heat stream was as hot as flames, while the other part was as cold current, and even contained the 9 immortals. The immortals' blood was sucked in by Wu Yutun. In fact, Zhu Xian's delicate body seemed to explode, with surging heat pouring in. It was as if she had vomited out everything she had swallowed on Wu Yu's body, and even vomited out her own. In a daze, Wu Yu seemed to hear the sound of something breaking. The demon pill is broken. Wu Yu was shocked and couldn't believe it. This was a miraculous accident for him. Even if it happened, he himself didn't react. Even at this time, after the 9 immortals' demon pill shattered, part of the mana was swallowed by him. I'm afraid that the reaction of Tianhu's method of casting golden elixirs, otherwise, even if it escapes, it will not flow into Wu Yu's body. Snap! The 9 immortals' expression turned grim and they violently withdrew Wu Yu. Perhaps she had lost the power to control the silver charm, and the silver charm fell off Wu Yu's body, and Wu Yu was free. Bang bang! Both of them fell to the ground. Wu Yu climbed up with difficulty and sat up cross-legged. Now his body was like crazy. The magic power after the opponent's demon pill was broken was infused into part of his body. This was not a good thing, even though he had the method of Tianhu casting golden pill. Was in effect, but out of the control of the 9 immortals, it soon became chaotic in Wu Yu's body. It felt like swallowing dozens of qi condensing pills at once, and he couldn't spit them out. Wu Yu is in danger again. By this time, the Ruyi golden cudgel had long since disappeared. However, the only consolation is that the condition of the 9 immortals is worse than Wu Yu. She turned into a beautiful fox in the sky, and the 9 fox tails rolled up her body, but she was still trembling. The vast magic power in her body formed a vortex and surrounded her. She must want the demon core to be shattered. Generally speaking, the shattering of the demon core is very serious, and it is likely to return to the qi condensation realm, or even worse. No, part of her mana has entered my body, even if the mana suppresses the current riot, there is still not enough mana to condense the golden elixir completely. Wu Yu judged the situation of the two people clearly at once. It must be the Ruyi golden cudgel that saved me, I must live. Wu Yu knew clearly that this was a chance to survive from a desperate situation. Wanking didn't kill himself before allowing himself to embark on the path of cultivating Taoism. This time he had to survive a catastrophe and must live. His eyes were red and he had a stronger desire to live than anyone else. On the other hand, 9 Immortals, this is really painful and pitiful. That Ming Long appeared in front of him, looked at Wu Yu in shock, and said, "Holy crap! It saved you. Why did it not move at all when Grandma and I died in the battle? It's not fair, it's not fair." She also gave up, so she was confused by everything that happened now. Wu Yu couldn't help laughing when he saw her looking crazy, and said, "I know the reason." "What?" Ming Long listened intently. "Because the great sage Kishan and I are both men, and you are a woman," Wu Yu said. You. You dare to discriminate against women? You were almost killed by a woman just now." Ming Long rolled her eyes. She was actually checking Wu Yu's body. At this time, she survived the disaster. In fact, she was also excited and said, "This must be a trouble." She used magic to swallow your Yang Yuan and combine it with her Yin Yuan to form her new magic power. The Ruyi golden cudgel made her spit out the power that originally belonged to you. And also pulled out that part of her. After all, that part of her has been fused with yours using magic. These forces of rebellion are naturally not Wu Yu's high-grade magic power, but the fusion of the Sky Fox casting golden pill technique. Only half of it belongs to Wu Yu, so after entering Wu Yu's body, it will be combined with the high-grade magic power. The violent conflict was beyond Wu Yu's control. If it continued like this, Wu Yu would be torn apart. What to do? Wu Yu couldn't help but ask. Ming Long had not been able to help Wu Yu before, so she probably felt that she was indebted. It was easy to talk at this time. After all, Wu Yu was not out of danger yet. She said, "These powers are poured into the body and they want to occupy your body. They must be taken over. It's unrealistic to drive them out. After all, some of them belong to you. You can use the great heavenly immortal technique to try to see if you can use them to build magic sources and transform them into a steady stream of great magic power. This is a risk, but it is also the only way." Wu Yu thought for a moment and felt that this was the only way. Looking towards the 9 Immortals, the fox demon was in even more pain under the raging power, but she still raised her head and looked at Wu Yu with scarlet eyes. Obviously she still hadn't given up, and in the scarlet color, there were more a murderous intention. In cultivating Immortals, apart from absolute suppression by strength, more often than not, the calm and brave ones will win. Wu Yu's mood was greatly shaken by this desperate situation, but he quickly calmed down. After experiencing this life and death threat, he understood the meaning of life better and was more determined about the outcome of this struggle. Undoubtedly, this is a bold and painful process. While refining the magic power, one must even endure the rupture and collapse of the body. Fortunately, part of this power belongs to Wu Yu, so Wu Yu can still guide it. If it were all qi condensation pills, the body would really be torn apart at this time. After all, his inner Vajra Buddha is not really complete. No matter what, Wu Yu is gritting his teeth and persisting. This is a life and death game. If I give up and let Juxian recover, I will still be the one who dies. The Ruyi Jingbang gave me this opportunity, and I must seize it. After walking through the gates of hell, Wu Yu's will to survive was far stronger than Juxian's. Even Ming Long was amazed and said, "Your endurance is 10 times stronger than Grandma's." Wu Yu grinned in the midst of painful persistence and said, "Who said just now that if I can save you this time, she will call me Grandpa?" Ming Long's face turned pale, and then he laughed and said, "You may have heard it wrong. Anyway, I didn't hear anyone say that." "I definitely didn't hear it wrong, but that person just didn't admit it. In fact, Ming Long is quite cute, but a little greedy. If you say another word, do you believe I will cook you and eat you?" She puffed up her cheeks and was a little crazy.
Wu Yu was too lazy to pay attention to her when he reached the critical moment. To be honest, the great heavenly immortal art was indeed the immortal cultivation method passed down by the great sage equal to heaven. Its strength did not lie in giving Wu Yu the most domineering magic power, but the magic formula itself was against the sky, especially in suppressing other power methods, reaching an incredible degree. Ming Long regretted not finding this great heavenly immortal art, otherwise she would not have died. With the great heavenly immortal art to consolidate the foundation, Wu Yu was at a level that was more solid than anyone else. Time passed. As Wu Yu consumed those violent powers and turned to condense into a method, when that power decreased, he was actually getting more and more relaxed. When he occasionally opened his eyes and collided with the scarlet eyes of the 9 immortals, the other party still looked at him with eyes full of aggression and desire. Although there was no dialogue, at this time, the two were indeed playing a game of life and death. It was very likely that whoever recovered the ability to move first would be the end of the other person. It might be more difficult for Juxian to stabilize her magic power after the whole body was broken into pieces than Wu Yu, but she was still very confident. Although there were twists and turns, as long as she was successful, she could still form a pill and even rush to the 4th level of the Golden Pill Avenue. Her eyes were more fierce than before, especially when she saw the ice sculpture behind her. Perhaps this was her belief. When her sister was harmed, this was her only pursuit. She could only fulfill the long-cherished wish of the sisters since childhood, and then avenge her. Juxian dreamed of killing that unfaithful person. So, her will has not wavered at all. Until 5 days later, she still couldn't control herself, but she clearly felt that Wu Yu had condensed a source of law again. He succeeded, and he used her magic power, which stunned Juxian. She had never heard of anyone who could dissolve other people's magic power and turn it into her own magic power. Although there was also a part of him in it, and because the Tianhu casting golden pill method was combined with her part, it was also incredible. At this moment, she saw the indifference in Wu Yu's eyes, and she actually felt fear. She was thinking, Wu Yu reversed all the way and finally killed Tian Yujun. Will she be the next Tian Yujun? Fortunately, even if Wu Yu rushed to the 9th level of the condensation realm, the power in his body was still not exhausted and was still rioting. As long as it was not consumed completely, Wu Yu could not move, let alone attack. Their bodies were like a bomb buried in them, which would explode as long as they moved. Juxian did not expect to form a pill directly this time. In fact, she was also condensing qi, reconstructing those riotous powers into one demon core after another. In fact, the appearance of the demon core is no different from the source of law, but the position is different. When Wu Yu condensed a source of law, she had stabilized half of her body's power. Still need to play a game. The two looked at each other, one cold and the other manic. Next, the gap appeared. Wu Yu was getting faster and faster, surpassing her speed. After 9 days, although he did not directly condense the 10th source of law, at least Wu Yu had consumed the riotous power in his body and resumed his actions, and he was more powerful than ever before. At that moment, Wu Yu picked up the black and white sword and walked towards the 9 immortals. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ public account 17K, ID, Love 17K, to read the latest information and get the latest information at any time. /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 180. The powerful integration and fusion of the great heavenly immortal techniques allowed the power that possessed part of Wu Yu's flesh and blood Yang Yuan to be dissolved and used to construct Wu Yu's 9th source of magic. Even the 10th source of law was almost formed. The 9th method source is located at the Mingmen point. The Mingmen point is located under the spine. It is an important point on the trunk and complements the Ki point.
The 10th Dharma source is located at Fengqi Point, which is located at the back of the head and is the last one among the 10 Dharma sources. In this Huqi mountain cave, Wu Yu unexpectedly succeeded in condensing qi thanks to the 9 Immortals' heavenly fox casting golden pill technique. This alone allowed the 9 Immortals to rush to a small part of the 4th level of the golden pill Dao realm. The power was transferred to Wu Yu's body, but Wu Yu quickly condensed his energy. Now, with cold eyes and a black and white Dao sword in his hand, he was standing in front of the 9 Immortals. The 9 Immortals still had not controlled the rioting mana in her body. She had condensed most of it into the core of the demon element, but there was still some left. It is this gap that makes it unable to move. One of the two stood, the other crawled, looking at each other like this. All the past events were still vivid in their minds. The gentleness and ruthlessness of the 9 Immortals were intertwined. Wu Yu had experienced life and death disasters, and he knew her true face better, which was hatred and indifference towards people. Heartless. He. Zhu Xian couldn't help but laugh. She raised her head and stared at Wu Yu, saying, "I didn't expect that Zhu'er would be broken in your hands in the end. As dramatic as the story is, God has favored you so much. It's not fair and I won't accept it." Wu Yu looked at her. Now that his spirit and will were firm, he was no longer affected by it. He said word by word, "This has nothing to do with God. Everyone has their own destiny. You are so much stronger than me, and you are toying with me amidst the applause, that's the real injustice. You didn't seize the opportunity to kill me in the first place, and that's why you're suffering the consequences now." The 9 Immortals sneered and said, "I want you to be pure yang, so how can I kill you first and waste this treasure of yours?" Wu Yu said, "In your eyes, I am just a treasure, right?" Zhu Xian was startled and remained silent for a long time. After a while, she transformed into a human form in front of Wu Yu's eyes, with no hair on her body. Her beautiful figure and flawless face appeared in front of Wu Yu's eyes. She looked like this. Chu Chu was pitiful. With a pleading look, her eyes filled with tears, she said, "Wu Yu, Zhu'er knows that he was wrong. Wu Yu forgives Zhu'er. Now Wu Yu is stronger than Zhu'er. Zhu'er will not dare to make any mistakes again. He will let go in the future. How about Zhu'er serving Wu Yu?" Wu Yu smiled and said, "Do you think I can't bear to kill you, so you want to seduce me again? 9 Immortals, the day you bit my body with your ruthless eyes, I felt guilty 100 times. I swear, I will kill you." Wu Yu's black and white Dao sword was pressed against his throat. "Wu Yu, I don't want to die. My revenge has not been avenged. My sister died miserably. The betrayed person is at large. I want revenge," Juxian suddenly cried bitterly and twitched. She looked back at the ice sculpture, her shoulders twitching continuously, her face red. Crying, "I feel pity for you. This is indeed the real her. Please, spare me and give me a way to live. I know I was wrong. I am no match for you. I will never dare to challenge you again." At this point, seeing that Wu Yu was still indifferent, she changed her words, "Maybe you give me some time, and when I succeed in my revenge, I will come and die in front of you." Such a beauty, delicate and charming, fell at her feet. She just wanted revenge. This was her obsession. It seemed that none of the 9 Immortals should die. However, Wu Yu could not break his oath. "If I don't kill you today, my heart is not straight." Wu Yu's heart was filled with passion, and she remembered the several life and death attempts in front of the 9 Immortals. Today, the 9 Immortals begged for mercy, but when she suppressed Wu Yu, she did not give Wu Yu the slightest chance to beg for mercy. "Who is your enemy? If there is a chance, I will help you find out." Wu Yu's eyes were red and he made a decision. "You still want to kill me?" Zhu Xian collapsed, crying with tears all over his face. "Tell him his identity and name," Wu Yu roared. "Shushan Immortal Sect, Zhangfutu." He didn't know the place or the person, but Wu Yu remembered the name and the place, and that was enough. He didn't necessarily have to end his obsession with the 9 immortals. If he really met and couldn't stand the other person, he would end it. This was the choice he made. Unaccustomed to how pitiful the 9 immortals were, Wu Yu would rather kill her to end his obsession with her. It's not that he is cold-blooded, but that he needs to be worthy of himself. Wu Yu, can you kiss Jua again? The 9 immortals' eyes were red and full of tears, and they looked at him affectionately. Even if Jua wants to kill you, Jua still regards you as his only husband. Jua is in love with you. Everything she said was so true. Yet so false. Is it true or false? Wu Yu felt that it was not important anymore. After being entangled with this woman for such a long time, Zhu Xian taught him a heavy lesson in his life. This was an inexplicable love and vendetta. Wu Yu. Zhu stood up tremblingly, stretched out her hands, and held his cheeks. Please. Her eyes were pure and pure, without hatred, only an emotion that was incomprehensible to her. Wu Yu kissed her on the forehead, and in the next step, the black and white Taoist sword pierced the body of the 9 immortals. Remember, Shushan immortal sect, Zhang Futu, Wu Yu, there is no chance in this life. In the next life, I will be your wife and I will never make you sad again. Finally, the 9 immortals spoke in his ear like a silk thread. Wu Yu had never seen such a touching woman in half his life before this moment. Even though she was a fox demon, these last words and a look of nostalgia were deeply engraved in his heart. Finally, she fell limply to the ground and lost her voice. After death, she transformed into her true form, a 9-tailed, pure white little fox, lying peacefully in Wu Yu's arms, as if she was asleep. Looking at her, Wu Yu felt mixed emotions. He didn't regret killing her, but he didn't feel that his obsession with ending the 9 immortals was contradictory. Although I narrowly escaped death, it is undeniable that her appearance made me what I am today. The passing of the 9 immortals has become a wonderful existence in Wu Yu's life. Sometimes she is a heavenly immortal, pure and charming, and sometimes she is a ghost and god, crazy and bloodthirsty. Wu Yu buried her next to the ice sculpture and set up a tombstone. He hesitated for a moment, not knowing what to write. Zhu Xian said that she regarded Wu Yu as her husband, but who knew whether this was true or not. Finally, Wu Yu carved 5 words on the tombstone, Wu Yu's Jur. After finishing carving, he stood up. Suddenly, the cave shook. Somewhere behind Wu Yu, rocks exploded, and a large amount of gravel rolled in with a roar. Wu Yu looked back and saw that the passage of the cave had been destroyed. Open it from the inside out. Wu Yu didn't know that the location was a blocked hole. It would be easier to attack from the outside, otherwise Wu Yu would have to fumble for some time. The 9 immortals are dead, so naturally this cave cannot trap Wu Yu. What followed the rocks rolling in was the golden sword energy. The moment Wu Yu turned around, Feng Shui, who was gray-headed and much thinner, rushed in from the outside. He looked very tired, but at this moment, he also had murderous intent. Soaring to the sky, since he came in, this place has been completely enveloped by sword intent, and even Wu Yu can feel the deep murderous intention. Wu Yu. Master. The two looked at each other. Feng Shui could hardly believe his eyes. It took him nearly 10 days to walk through the maze to find this place. He originally thought that Wu Yu would definitely die. The moment he came in, he saw Wu Yu standing alive and unscathed. In front of his eyes. Are you not dead? Where are the 9 immortals? Feng Shui quickly arrived in front of him, checking Wu Yu's condition while being vigilant about the surroundings. As a result, Wu Yu's physical condition was surprisingly good. Here Wu Yu pointed to the tombstone at his feet. When Feng Shui saw the tombstone, he was startled for a moment, then looked at Wu Yu in disbelief and said in shock, 9 immortals are dead. You killed him? How did you do it?
Feng Shui knew how powerful the 9 Immortals were and how they could defeat Lan Huayun, so in fact he estimated that he was no match for the 9 Immortals. Wu Yu shook his head and said, "I think I survived a desperate situation. I was surprised myself, but in the end, I survived." For Feng Shui, this was enough. He knew deeply that he could not understand Wu Yu thoroughly now. He just wanted Wu Yu to live. After all, he was the one who almost saved the Tongtian sword sect. He never thought that he would receive such a reward for saving a prince in trouble that day. Now, Wu Yu is still alive, but the 9 Immortals are dead. This is the biggest surprise. As for the details, how Wu Yu did it is no longer important. Just survive. It's over. This time, it's completely over. Feng Shui sighed deeply, her face finally relaxed. The look she was looking at Wu Yu was filled with pride, and a cheerful smile appeared on her face. "Master, let's go. These 9 Immortals must have many treasures. It would be a waste to stay here. Let's look for them." In fact, she basically has all those things on her body, and the most important part is the psychic magic weapon Silver Charm. When the 9 Immortals died, the Silver Charm had no magic power to support it, so it turned into a silver bracelet and fell to the ground. Wu Yu picked it up and smelled it carefully. There was still the fragrance of the 9 Immortals on it. Refining the spiritual magic weapon requires a drop of blood to assist in refining the secret method. "I will teach you when I return to the Bibo Mountains," Feng Shui said. He probably saw that there was a strange relationship between Wu Yu and the 9 Immortals. Connection, or emotion. After cleaning up, the two of them raised their swords into the sky and flew through the clouds and mist. It was not difficult to get out of the natural maze. Feng Shui speeded up appropriately and found that Wu Yu could keep up. "Have you reached the 9th level of Qi condensation realm?" he couldn't help but ask. A few years ago, before Wu Yu practiced, he was at the 1st level of the Golden Core realm. Now Wu Yu is almost catching up with him, and his cultivation has not changed. "Yes. The last magic source is almost there." Wu Yu nodded. Of course, he was a little surprised. No matter how fast Feng Shui was, Wu Yu could catch up with him now. He couldn't help but sigh and said, "It seems that the Tongtian sword sect, which is far away from home, has a top genius from Dongsheng Shenzhou. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E